Why, who, and when to go. It may be assumed that most people want to go to Europe and know why they want to go. It is hardly worthwhile to waste any time over the man who has no desire to see the land of his ancestors, to view the scenes made familiar by the pen of the historian, the storyteller, or the poet, to enjoy the art treasures of the old world. If 1,000 books of travel, if lectures and letters innumerable, if the enthusiasms of homecoming tourists have not aroused a longing to cross the Atlantic, it would be futile for me to try where the most potent of human influences have failed. My province, then, should be to aid those who want to go and can go, but do not know just how, when, and where to go. To encourage those who really have the means to go, but fear they cannot afford it. To save time, vexation, and money for those who have decided to go, but lack experience of their own and have no experienced friends from whom to get the desirable information. It is possible, also, that aid can be given even to those who have talked the matter over with the most expert of tourists. For rare is the man who, having done a thing himself, can remember all the doubts and uncertainties that perplexed him before he did it. Any feat accomplished seems easy enough afterward. Then, too, molehills for one man may be mountains for his successor. So though I set myself deliberately to conveying all the information on this topic that may occur to me as likely to be useful, I may omit answers to many questions that might be asked. But it is tolerably certain that I shall answer more than any questioner would be likely to think of in one conversation. To advance reasons why anybody should go to Europe may be dispensed with, but it may not be useless to advise you to know yourself why you are going. To have your object clearly defined in your own mind. Surely, your trip cannot be intelligently planned if you are misty as to its purpose, and surely it would be foolish to devote some months of your life, possibly some years, to an expedition without definite aim. To be sure, travel for its own sake is beneficial. It is then far from useless to journey through a foreign land with no other idea than to enjoy its scenery, its buildings, and its art, to observe the customs of its people, and to live for a while as they live. The extra cost of a European vacation over that of one in the States is never more than the expense of going and coming, and is usually much less. It is probably cheaper to go to Europe than to go to Florida for anything more than a month, and certainly is less expensive than to go to Southern California. Age and sex. As for age, nobody not in the first or second childhood is too young or too old to profit by a European trip. Any boy or girl of talking age will pick up a foreign language with an ease and celerity astonishing to the adult, and will thus profit to a degree well worth the pains of taking a child a journeying. Elderly people, too, who have never traveled, may find it hard to accommodate themselves to the change in their daily routine, and the frictions of journeying sometimes try their patience and temper unduly, though it is the fact that women from 55 to 70 often accommodate themselves to circumstances more cheerfully than many of the younger people. The matter of sex need not affect in the slightest the question of foreign travel. Under like conditions, there is no greater fear of insult abroad than at home. In the mere matter of travel, Europe offers in some ways more comfort and convenience than America to women journeying alone or in parties without men. They need never touch their luggage unless they choose. At hotels and railway stations, they will always be more courteously treated than men, and that is saying a good deal. Quote, "Its object is to furnish women who wish to travel for purposes of rest and study with such practical advice and encouragement as shall enable them to do so independently, intelligently, and economically. It is not designed for the convenience of women who organize or conduct large parties." Seasons and climates. If it is for a vacation that the trip is to be made, undoubtedly the best time to go is in the early summer. Europe, on the whole, is cooler than the United States, and of course 2 or 3 weeks on the ocean save just so much of the discomforts of dog days. Switzerland in July and August is to Europe what the White Mountains are to New England, and at the same season Scotland, Norway, Sweden, and Russia are delightful. But the difference in temperature between most of Central Europe and the United States in summer is not enough to make it worthwhile going there at that time for climate reasons alone. If one is to go abroad simply for physical good, it may be wisest to go not when the climate left at home is at its worst, but when the climate reached on the other side is at its best. As many people, by reasons of the limitations of a business or a profession, must go in June, if at all, and return in August or September, the steamers are then most crowded. Therefore, their owners not improperly charge a higher rate across in the late spring and early summer, a higher rate back in the late summer and early fall. In spite of this, the demand for berths is so great that they must be engaged weeks or even months in advance, unless the tourist can run the risk of getting at the last moment some berth that has been given up, when he may be lucky enough to secure the best of accommodations. From November to April, there is usually plenty of room, and travelers to whom crossing is an old story frequently take no more precautions than they would to secure a berth in a sleeping car for Chicago or St. Louis. In the winter, payment for a single berth usually secures a whole stateroom to yourself, and you have practically the pick of the boat. Sometimes on the smaller boats, there will not be half a dozen first-class passengers. From the point of view of both economy and comfort, then it is wiser, if practicable, to travel when the winter rates are in force. The fear of stormy weather doubtless deters many people from doing this, but the fact is that though the chances of severe storms are greater in winter than in summer, they are not enough greater to cut any figure with those who cross repeatedly. So that in this regard, nothing is to be saved by winter travel, but undoubtedly the southern passage is the milder, and with less storms. On the other side, too, winter travel has many advantages over that of summer. The trains are seldom half full, and it is a rarity when a couple cannot get a compartment to themselves, if they want it. The hotels are less crowded, and you average better accommodations for the same money. You see the sights more at your ease. If the society life of London and Paris has attractions, the late spring is the time for you to study it. The London season, as it is called, theoretically begins after Easter and lasts till August 12th. In midwinter, the climate is not attractive. Fogs are often a nuisance, and when there is no fog, it is usually bleak, wet, and what the English call nasty. Perhaps, then, the fall and early spring are the best times in which to visit London. In France, the conditions are somewhat different. To be sure, Paris, too, has its season, coming about the same time as the London season and ending earlier. In those months, the climate of Paris is charming. The Bois de Boulogne is at its best. All the parks are delightful. The two salons are open, and the conditions are the most satisfactory for every kind of sightseeing. The spring and fall are undoubtedly the best times for Italy. The winters, to be sure, are nominally mild. Snow is a rarity in Naples and seldom stays long in Rome, Florence, or Venice, and the thermometer calls few days frigid. But the mercury lies in Italy. Do not, however, get the idea that Italy is unendurable in winter. It has charms at every season of the year, and its January is certainly more comfortable than a Boston or New York January. But it is not paradise. It is at its best in April and May, before the sun has begun to burn up things. May is certainly the best month for the Italian lakes, unless one prefers to go in October, when the fruit is ripe and the weather usually delightful. June is a charming month at Venice, though some of its days are uncomfortably warm. Later on, the canals get stale and sour. The summer temperature in Vienna averages about the same as that of Louisville, Kentucky. Indeed, the Italian summer is much like that of Kentucky or Virginia, endurable enough, but less comfortable than the spring. In July and August, the thermometer at Rome averages almost exactly the same register as in Washington. Sicily has an annual temperature averaging close to that of South Carolina. Its climate is somewhat humid. Switzerland, for the passing tourist, is of course to be visited in summer and in August rather than in June or July, if any mountain climbing is to be done. For while the snows are melting in early summer, the heights are the more dangerous. Many foreigners pass the winter about Lake Geneva, particularly at its eastern end, and there are a few winter resorts at high altitudes, almost wholly frequented by invalids, for whose needs a peculiar climate is desirable. But to the ordinary traveler, Switzerland in winter is dreary. Germany's climate is much like that of New England and the Middle States, with plenty of snow and with skating a favorite amusement. Yet though cold weather prevails, people who have passed winters in Germany, and also in Italy, say they prefer Germany because the houses are warmly built and well provided with stoves. Vienna is slightly warmer than Boston in the winter, slightly cooler in the summer. It has sharp changes in temperature. In England itself, much the same effect is produced by the ocean influences on Cornwall. All of Spain is very warm in summer, so that the best time for traveling through it is in the spring or fall. Southern Spain is much like southern Italy in winter. Water rarely freezes at Gibraltar. At Madrid, snowdrifts in winter are not uncommon, and the climate is like that of a city in our northern states. In Morocco, Algiers, and Tunis, the November weather is like that of an American June. Until April, the days resemble our bright autumn without dampness. April is one of the best months for a visit, as the flowers are then in their glory. May is like our July, and from then through October is rainless and too hot for American tourists. Ice and snow are almost unknown. Cairo is declared to have the best climate in the world for the 3 winter months. Perhaps 8,000 foreigners, half of them Americans, visit Egypt every winter, but not many people go there or stay there after April. China should be reached in the spring, and the Japanese climate will be found agreeable in May. Athens has an equable climate, which in time is going to make it one of the most popular winter resorts on the Mediterranean. With the sea south of it and hills rising to mountains behind, it has a situation midway that of an island and a continent. If then the traveler had the time and money to change his climate like the birds, he would attain the maximum of comfort if he passed January and February in northern Africa, March in Palestine and Turkey, April and May in Italy, southern France and Spain, June in Paris and England, July and August in Switzerland or Norway, Sweden and Russia, September in Germany, October in Austria, November in Greece, December in Sicily. Not that these are positively the best months for each country named, but that this might make the best circular route for a year from the climatic point of view. Be sure that the more you know on any topic when you leave home, the better estimate will you put on your ignorance when you return, and the keener ambition will you have for your knowledge. In that direction lies one of the greatest benefits of travel. It teaches a man how small he is, how much he has to learn.